am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Eli Fathi, CEO of MindBridge, the developer of the world's first auditing tool based upon artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies that uncovers errors in financial data. Eli has been a technology entrepreneur for over 30 years and founded or co-founded many successful technology companies. He was recognized as the 2018 AI Leader of the Year by the Digital Finance Institute and is a prolific speaker, including talks at the AICPA, Startup Canada Day, and TEDx. Eli also gives back to the community by mentoring future business leaders and sitting on boards of various nonprofit organizations. During my interview with Eli, he shares his journey from living in a one-bedroom home with his siblings, grandmother, and parents in Israel to coming to Canada to begin his career journey. Learn how his upbringing shaped his success as a leader to be transparent and always put integrity first. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. My name is Amy Vetter, and today I'm with Eli Fathi from MindBridge AI. And Eli, do you want to just start off and give a little background on yourself?
Sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. MindBridge is my seventh company. I had 3 exits before, and I'm a die-hard supporter of entrepreneurship. I mentor a lot of people, both men and women, support a lot of women issue. I believe that we need to get more women into the tech business. And I'm very excited to be on your show.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. We've talked before. It's always a good conversation, but this conversation will be a little bit different because we're going to go a little bit into your background and understand you as a person and how that's affected you as a leader as well. So maybe you can start off, where are you from and how were you brought up?
Oh, perfect. Well, you can find also on YouTube, I did a TED Talk, and I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit of this discussion, the presentation that I made. So I was born in Israel. I was one of 9 people in one room, shared one room. Of course, I don't remember that. When I was 5 years old, we moved to one bedroom where my parents had one room and 6 kids, and occasionally grandma will be in one room. So this is where my father had a store, fruits and vegetable store, and we expected to work. And after school we'll go and work. There was not a lot of anything those days. But you know what? I never felt poor because no one else had anything. And it was lots of fun. After school, we would go and help in the store. And my father really taught me the hard work, and so is my mom. But basically, he'll wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to the market to buy the fruits and vegetables, come home for 6:30, eat breakfast, go to the store to open the store, receive the fruits and vegetables, and then come back at night at 6 o'clock, eat dinner, watch TV for an hour, go to sleep at 9, and the next day the whole cycle started again. So for me, living with 5 siblings plus as an occasional grandma, basically at those days there was no internet, there was phone. I mean, even if you can afford it, it was like gold. Maybe, and obviously we cannot afford it, no television. So what do? You tell stories. You spend a lot of time with your parents and siblings telling stories. And I used to visualize. That's one thing that I always remember. I visualize, I go to bed and visualize me standing in front of blue lakes with big green trees. And I always, when I go to bed, I said, this is what I want to go. This is where I want to be. And when I was 22 years old, I came here to Canada, and I went to school. And it's interesting because my father gave me $500 in a suitcase. That's what I came up with in here. And I remember going to college, and there was a lecture about velocity and acceleration. And of course, there was no internet. What you do, you go back home and you look at the dictionary to understand what the words are. And then the next day you study for the next session, and you go through that. Every day you go home and you look at the dictionary. You try to read the lecture and make notes and make sure that you are doing well. And my wife and I got married, and we had to
well,
stay.
let me pause you before you go on to your wife, because I have some questions.
Sure.
So backing up a little bit, college. So were your parents college educated, or how did that even happen coming from that background?
That's actually all related to my mom. Mom really believed in education, and my father went to grade 5. That's all. My mother went to high school. So
and where were they from?
They were born in Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So for my mom, education was key.
And why was that? Where did she see that it was important? Like, do you know?
Actually, she was very bright. And what happened when she was young, she had an infection with one of her eyes. And being a girl growing up in the 30s and 40s, it was, well, guess what? Girls, that's why I feel so strong about women and women educations. They basically, they felt that, with one, I guess, lazy eye, they stopped the education, and otherwise she's booming woman, right?
Wow. Okay. So, so how, like, cause this is a big move, right? Moving from Israel to Canada. So how did you choose the college, and how did you get accepted and afford it and all of that?
Well, I had 3 goals that I set. I always set up goals, and I had 3 goals. I wanted to be, by the age of 30, I wanted to have a child, I wanted to have a home, and I wanted to have my second degree. So I knew that I was going to do all the way to master's. I knew that I would not do the PhD because I wanted to be practical. I did not want to be a professor. And when I accepted to, and that's really interesting, when I was accepted to university, I came here on August the 23rd to Canada. And of course, by that time, all the registration was accepted. And my sister, who actually passed away to cancer, convinced the registrar to say, look, you're already 4 years behind in somebody that was born in Canada. Why don't you let him in? And they did. On August the 23rd, they accepted me. But I said, look, I really don't have a good master of the English language. Let me go to college. And I did. And you can tell my marks because it started with C's and D's, and when I finished, it was straight A's.
Yeah.
When I finished university, it was summa cum laude, 9.3.
Wow, good for you.
But it was just the master of the English language. And for me to learn the language, it was what I did in school, plus watching the Flintstones and Hogan's Heroes and all the really good TV shows. So that's how.
So your sister was already at that college and was able to help?
No, she lived in Canada, and that's one of the reasons that we came to Canada. Yeah.
Okay, so she kind of facilitated that for you.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Wow, that's really nice that you had that to help you get over here.
I remember working summer job. It was literally $20 a day, $2.50 for 8-hour day. So at the end of the week, you'll get $100 minus the deduction.
Yeah.
And with student loans, and working, that's what we were able to do. And as I said, my wife and I stayed close to the college because we could not afford to basically take the bus.
Right.
Our entertainment was basically to go every couple of weeks to the mall, take the bus, and have ice cream as a treat. That's what we did.
So how did you meet your wife?
At the college, at the bus stop, as a matter of fact.
Okay. So when you went to college, um, was how did you know what degree you wanted to go start with, or where did that come from? Was it from your dad being an entrepreneur, or like where did you begin with it?
My sister suggested that electrical engineering, in engineering would be a good time to go into, and
Okay.
that's what I did.
Wow. Okay. So that's what you graduated in.
Yeah,
Okay.
electrical engineering.
And did you like it?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, so with that degree, what did you end up doing with it?
So as soon as I finished college, immediately I went to university and I did my engineering degree. And
So with electrical engineering, what did you end up doing with it?
so I became a designer of hardware and assembly level language. So at this point in time, in 1978, you started to have microprocessors which are the main building blocks of PCs. And when you did real-time systems, you needed to design the hardware circuit board as well as program the microprocessor. So that's what I did. And then I decided that I would like to do my master's. As I said, my goal was to do my master's, and it was in microprocessor project management, basically how to look at how to manage the development of multi-processor-based systems. And I wrote the thesis. I had 4 publications out of it. Actually, in total, I had quite a lot of, I was prolific kind of an engineer. I had about 12 publications, as well as a book that I wrote on microprocessor project management. So I was really very prolific in the engineering side for the first 3 years of my career.
Yeah, sounds like it. So with this transition, so you have student loans, you're going into your first career, you've grown up, pretty humble, living in a 1-bedroom house or apartment. So how did that affect you with going into your adult life?
It taught me that what is important in life, right? It's friendship, it's family, hard work, commitment, meeting expectations, all of the things that when you have really nothing else except yourself and the family, it's really important. This is what's important at the end of the day. And up to now, I'm a very much a family man. I'm married to my wife for 45 and a half years.
Congratulations.
Soon I'll be 46 years. So it's all about family, and that's what it taught me.
Mm-hmm. So from building that, what was your trajectory after that? So how did you get into the business side of running companies?
So one of my professors at the university had a dormant company, and I was working at one of the most secure positions in terms of job security. And my daughter was just born, and I felt that I can do, I guess my entrepreneur kind of spirit in me got awakened. And I said, why don't we find basically a contract for 3 months, and I will leave work and I will join you, and let's start this company, which I did. My daughter was born, and a week later, I left secure job to start on a 3 months contract, and I never looked back. And since then, this was 7 companies later.
Wow. So what was that company?
So this company was a consulting company that designed fault-tolerant computers. At that point, as I said, the microprocessor was starting to become important, and it was also the notion of single failure was an issue, especially in military systems.
Mm-hmm.
So we started to develop fault-tolerant computer systems.
So what did you start learning from moving from a subject matter expert role into running a business, or being you're making this pivot into leadership? What did you draw upon to be able to make that shift?
Well, in the first two positions, I was more on the engineering type, and it was the third company onwards that I was the key leader to look at really the whole team. And when there is a difference when you are a partner with somebody and you are looking at the engineering side versus when you are now the CEO and you're looking after the whole company facets. And I remember, that you don't get paid until your people get paid.
Yeah.
You don't, it's the same thing on the boat, right? The captain eat last, the captain, or whatever you do, you are the last one you have to take care of your people. And that caring, again, this is something that I learned from back home. And the fact that you have to really take care of everybody else, make sure that they're happy in order for everything to function properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was that company that you were first CEO with? And
it was a company that was one of my first exits. It's a company that did what I knew best, which was real-time systems. So we designed and supported industry and government with real-time based systems, both hardware and software. And that company ended up purchased by a company from the US.
Okay. So with that, when you're talking about like taking some of those lessons of caring about people, what are some things that you put into place and like culture wise so people did feel nurtured, whether it's by you or the people that they were reporting to as well? Like, how do you monitor that culture to make sure that's happening?
So one of the things that really is important to me is transparency. I feel that this is very important. And as I was building the different companies, I remember mentoring people. I talk about integrity first. You have the integrity and the transparency. Basically, sunshine, sunlight, sun rays show it bleaches everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put it in the sunshine. You put a shirt that has tomato stains on it. It will bleach it. And that's why I believe in transparency and integrity, because nothing can be hidden and people know what's going on. And I feel that is some of the element that I am basically embedded in the company. One other, also delegation, relying on other people, having this kind of relationship. I always became friends. I said, basically, if I'm going to hire somebody, I would like to be able to feel that I can go to their house and I can invite them to my house. So in many of the cases, the people that I work with, they became friends and friends for life.
Yeah, which is a big deal. So I know, though, as a leader, sometimes that line of friendship can be hard because you also have to make hard decisions as a leader as well with the people that work with you. So how do you maintain that line of friendship and leadership so that it's still effective? You're not, being walked on as a leader, or if you have to make the hard decisions, that you can do it in a generous way.
I feel that it really is a function of the people that you're hiring. It takes two to tango, as the story goes. And if you want to have people that you're going to become friends with, they understand their company situation, they understand what is needed, and they will react in a very professional way. And they will never take advantage of their personal side. To me, the personal and the professional side are separate, but because of the integrity, because of the transparency, there is no reason that two mature people or a group of people cannot behave in a mature way, because you know exactly what's going on and you know what has to be done.
Right.
So you don't have to really convince anybody. That's what you're doing.
So, and that's a really important and a hard thing to do as a leader, is interviewing. So do you have specific questions you ask or specific things you're looking for when you're interviewing somebody to know that that is going to fit into the culture when you say it's a two-way street, that you can watch for certain things during the interview process?
Absolutely. I interview all the people in the company until now. And basically, I look for a couple of things. One, I start with culture. Really, I want to make sure that the individual cares about more than just work. So I look for things like, do you volunteer for anything? Are you a person that has hobbies related to not what you do at work, but rather beyond work? Because if you're just work related and don't care about the world around you, you probably would not be a good communicator. You would not really fit into the team. And when I look at these kind of things, I look at the behavior. Are you a doer, or are you somebody that does not care as much? These are the things that are really important to me, because as a manager, especially if you're not a doer, it becomes very difficult to be part of a big team, because you cannot really grow and you cannot delegate if you are not able. People look at you and want to make sure that you are the best gunslinger that there is. And if you're not, they'll feel that, why are you leading me? Because you really don't deserve to be the leader.
Right.
So depending on which position it is, I want to make sure that culture is number one, and then the functions associated with what they do.
Mm-hmm. How do you make sure people are delegating?
Well, I wrote about 18 blogs, and one day I hope to turn it into a book. And in these blogs, I actually give examples of what you should do. And I talk about different areas. I talk about culture. I talk about how to with customer success. I talk about different topics. But each blog has two parts to it. One part is what I call business guides, and the second part is business rule. And in order to remember it, each of the business rule actually has some kind of metaphor, some kind of example. For example, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time, and things like that. But I actually took a story. I have a story that talks about it. So one good example is something about which Stephen Covey, the famous author, talked about sharpening the axe, right? And this is going back to Abraham Lincoln, that said, if I have 6 hours to cut patch of trees, I will use the first 4 hours to sharpen my axe, and then I'll use it, right? So the whole idea is to give them guidance about how to do it, and people will remember it because you're giving them examples about what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this also goes back to your upbringing with your father delegating to all of you, and and knowing that he couldn't have accomplished what he did if, you can't do it all, right? Like there would be no way, but he made it in a way that all of you wanted to do it. It wasn't like something you were frustrated about doing or that sort of thing, but you were learning along the way. And I think that's a really important part of delegation, because there's no way for someone to get to the next level or learn the next thing if you're micromanaging. And you should always be ready to prepare someone to be your replacement one day.
That's interesting. One of the mantras that we have in MindBridge, we have 10 mantras, and one of them is no micromanagement.
Really? That's awesome. So with that, so let's talk about MindBridge a little bit. So when did you get to MindBridge? How long ago?
I did not start the company. This company was started by one of my mentees. I joined 6 months later, and we joined forces, and it's been a great partnership since then.
Yeah. So when you talk about putting the mantras in place, like as a leader, now that you come into an organization, you've been a leader for a long time, are there certain things that you do right away based on what you've learned as a leader to make it an effective culture or company?
Absolutely. Culture is the most important thing that a company can have, especially as you grow. Think about simple math. You start with 2 people, and then you have, let's say, 10, year 1, and you have 20 year 2, and 40 and 50 and 100. If you don't have the mantra, so just take example going from 50 to 100, which happened to us the year before. What happened? You have 50 people, 100% equal to what the year before, that have no basically corporate history.
Right.
So how would they know how to teach the next 200 people or the next 100 people if they don't have the mantras and the corporate? The only way to do that is by having these mantras and knowing that this is where the Bible is for the company. These are the guides that we're going to follow. And by having that, that's the only way that you can really grow a company and maintain the culture without losing it along the way.
So how do you come up with those mantras? Do you have them, or are you developing those with your team, or how did you put those together?
Well, these happen to have ideas and comments I learned for 40 years in the business. And obviously I ran them by the team and got them to vet them and to enhance them. But basically each letter in MindBridge has a meaning. It has a mantra. M makes a difference. Do good in the world. I, integrity first. N, no micromanagement, and so on. Each letter means something, and it has a lot of value because it gives you guidelines, guardrails of what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm. So with that, there's a lot of corporations that have corporate cultures set, like, these kinds of values and whatever they call it in their company. How do you monitor that it's actually happening? Because it's one thing to put it together, but like you said, as you start scaling as a company and people weren't as close to it when you developed it and they're newer, like, how do you make sure they continue to live those values, those mantras, whatever you put into place?
About 3 months ago, we actually we have to remind people. So, and I think that we have not done it enough, but 3 months ago, we basically had an all staff update, and we had one individual randomly picked from the people that we have, and they actually, we talked about the mantra, and we asked them to give an example of how do they basically adhere to this mantra. And my intention is to continue to do that every about 6 to 8 months, just to remind people what the mantras are. They're actually on, when you come to our office, you'll see them on the wall, but being on the wall is not good enough. It's practicing them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's always the hardest part, I think. And, I've definitely seen with companies where when they evolve from small to scale, that starts getting lost along the way, because it's actually not a constant reminder that those things are in place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So constant reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly. So what is it about what you're doing now that is different but the same from the rest of your career? And how do you continue to learn and expand yourself at this stage of your career as well?
So they're really, what is different this time? If you look at my career, there are a number of evolution that took place, the PC revolution, the internet revolution. And now we're dealing with another revolution. I'm not talking about COVID, I'm talking about the AI revolution, right? Mm-hmm. And the AI revolution really changed everything. We are now poised, we are at the beginning of a marathon that we probably in the first 1 mile of the 26-mile marathon. And we haven't really seen the key impact of AI on our life. We already see some, if it's Alexa or Siri, but this is the beginning of massive, massive changes because of the AI revolution. Mm-hmm. We happen to really run on top of this AI revolution. But in the process, we've identified some area that is really crucial to the success of the world itself. And what does that mean? If you look at the world right now, Before COVID, pre-COVID, the world transaction of GDP was $85 trillion. 5% of that, or 4 trillion, got lost into the ether due to mismanagement. Mm-hmm. And that's big impact on the economy of the world. And only 200 billion of that got caught. And what we are doing with what we at MindBridge have right now is to try to rectify that. And you want to make sure that the transactions, and by the way, that 85 trillion transactions are all to do with financial transactions. It's either government or it is corporations. Mm-hmm. And when you look at this financial transaction, and if you can identify these $5 trillion of anomalies that exist, you're going to make a big difference in the life of many people. Many people are now looking at, do I have the right decision? Look at corporations, and obviously we're not dealing with the individuals, but rather we're dealing with corporations being enterprise or governments. And it's staggering, Amy, that they did a study just recently, 1,100 C-level, the top one, the top 1,000, 100 executive. And they asked them, do you make decisions based on your data that you have? Over 55% said that they are not sure what's in their data. They are not sure what's in the financial data. And most worrisome is that 70%, over 70% said that they make decisions based on flawed, they believe flawed data or insufficient data. We want to change that. We want to identify and basically what we call verified by MindBridge. We want to tell people, when you put your financial data through our system, through our software, you are assured that this data is correct and you can make a decision based on that, verified by MindBridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big goal to have. So when do you feel you will achieve that, or what percentage are you there with that?
Obviously, we are in the early stages of that process. We already have, in terms of our product, we already have quite a lot of the base technology. We already have many customers, but obviously it's a really massive product. We expect probably by the end of the year to have the majority of the functionality, which include all the subledgers. We already have a GL, AR, AP. We're adding the other subledgers. So we'll have the ability to have really a product that will be able to present. And by the way, just with these three, you already have probably 80-90% of what you need. But wow. Still, if you really want to have a complete, fully all subledgers, we probably by the end of the year will be there.
That's amazing. That's exciting.
Very exciting for us, yes. And very exciting to our customers. I think that we want, and that's why I said, make a difference. We want to do good in the world.
Right. And that, I think that's a really important mantra and value to have. And I think it's, again, when you're repeating that, all the people that work there understand how they're making a difference and how their jobs make a difference and, making an impact, on their customers and so forth.
It's very kind of nice to sell a product that you believe in, but it's also a product that makes good.
Yes.
Right? So it's really much easier to sell something that you believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to do some just rapid fire questions at the end of our interview. So you get to pick a category. So the category is family and friends, money, spiritual, or health.
Family and friends.
Okay. So things or actions I don't have that I want with my family and friends.
Since I was young, and on Friday night, we used to have dinner all the time, right? As we came to Canada, and I stopped that. And I feel that it's something that I wish I can recreate. I know, for example, I read that Neil Diamond every Sunday he goes to his mom. I read it about 10 years ago. I don't know if it's still there. Every Sunday he goes there for dinner. And I would like to recreate that with my family. It's something that I wish that you do it when the children are young and they are used to it. And then when you stop doing it, it's kind of difficult to go back. But that's one thing that, if looking back, I would have liked to have done.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. My son makes sure we do it.
Okay, that's good.
And now we do it like at least once a month, if not more. But it's really nice, to do that time together where you kind of calm down. And so I totally agree. Things or actions I do have that I want.
I want more time with my family. So I spend a lot of time. I'm blessed to have, as I said, my wife and I been married for 45 and a half years.
Yes.
Almost 46 soon. And we spend a lot of time with our daughters, and I want to spend more. And so obviously with the limitation of work, I love work. Both my wife and I work, and we love work. So I would like to do more of that.
Yeah. Things or actions that I don't have that I don't want.
Drama. I don't have, I'm lucky, I'm blessed that we don't have drama. And we have 2 loving daughters and 1 grandson that is just newly minted grandpa. So
congratulations.
Thank you. And we have no drama, and I'm glad that we don't have drama.
That's awesome. Things or actions that I do have that I don't want.
The FaceTime that we do now. I would like to do more face-to-face. So with COVID, the limitation that you have, my other daughter does not live in Ottawa, so I cannot see her. We see her FaceTime, but I really would like to do face-to-face.
Like human time. Yeah. It's amazing how you have this need, that you don't realize until it's taken away, right?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
So I know you have a concert or a conference coming up. I'm speaking at it in a couple weeks, this virtual conference. Do you want to just end talking a little bit about that conference and how it's going to help the users that come?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for being the keynote. We're very excited. Obviously, we wanted to do it in person, and everything was set up to do it in person. And obviously, given COVID, it's going to be online. We have Rob and Stacy from Esme Emperor is going to be there as well. I'll be talking as well. So it's going to be online. We basically want to describe to our users. It's a user conference. And what we would like to do is give them the latest and greatest of what we've done in terms of the product. We want to obviously expose them to thought leaders like yourself and Stacey Robin and things like that. We want to really bring them up to speed of all of the things that are happening in the world of AI, the world of software tools. And clearly, one thing that COVID has changed forever and will change is we're going to go more online. We're going to go more to the cloud. And our tool so it's very timely that what we're doing, they're going to be using it very usefully as they go on from this onwards. When we come out of COVID, probably a lot of people will start to be staying. So if they are not on the cloud yet, they will move to the cloud because it makes no sense. As a matter of fact, we're looking at it, and many people that are talking, today I wrote on Fortune magazine that people are saying that the big Fortune 500, 30% of them saying, do we want to go back to the way that we were? I mean, it looks like we are working well with this online.
Yep.
So we'll see. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes to show agility, how you've changed your conference so fast, and that you're already in the cloud, obviously, with what you do, but to be able to access now so many other people, even in other countries, for this, I think is exciting as well, with everything that can be looked at as, a hurdle. Also, there's a lot of positive that comes out of it. And you guys are so at the cusp of AI technology that I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot and have access to information they otherwise wouldn't have. So I'm looking forward to being a part of it. I'm grateful to be a part of it. And is there anything else you'd like to just make sure you leave as a message for our listeners?
Yes. I think that two messages. One, you have to believe in yourself. When I did my TED Talk, I talk about the following. Mm-hmm. In order for you to succeed, it's all about mindset. It's all about believing in yourself. And there are only two things that the human being can control: your attitude and your action. And attitude has to do with your mindset. Mm-hmm. If you set up your mind to succeed, you will succeed. And I read some sentence that is really cool. And it's only 10 words, and each word is only 2 letters. Okay. I leave you on that note. If it is to be, it's up to me. I'll repeat. If it is to be, it's up to me.
I love that. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for being my guest on this episode. It was a great conversation as usual. So many learnings. And I think there'll be a lot for people to take away from this. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
And now for our mindful moments with my interview with Eli. And I think I just want to start off with just his humble beginnings of being one of 9 people living in a 1-bedroom home and working from a young age, where he saw his father as an entrepreneur that didn't have much schooling, but was working hard, and all of his family contributed as well for the success of that business and for the betterment of that family. I think that's a really important lesson that we can learn very young in life, is what our part is in taking care of others, and that nothing is a given. And so him talking about just his experience of being a child in this way and visualizing what he wanted his life to be like one day, when he talked about being near lakes with green trees, and having a goal at 30 to have a child, a house, and a second degree. These visualizations that we create in our heads, whether intentional or unintentional, are something that's very important in our mindset, and also making sure we achieve the things that we want to in life, and that it's intentional. Rather than letting life just happen, it's really important that we do step back and think about our personal goals, not always the goals of our jobs and what our managers might tell us our goals are, or what our business plans are, but our personal goals, and visualize what that might look like. Not just the goals itself, but how do you want those to feel? And what would that look like in your life? Because then it can become real. And as you make little steps along the way, where he had to work extra hard in college in order to make sure he followed the language, as well as got good grades in a very hard degree, I think it's important that he could hold on to that visualization and know how he wanted to feel at the end, even when things are hard, because we all are going through hard moments with this pandemic, but also this just happens in life, period, that things don't necessarily go exactly the way that we want. So visualizations are really important for that. I think it was also important, as we talked about his shift and pivot into leadership, and the difference between being a subject matter expert and being a leader. And I think a lot of people can sometimes struggle with that shift, that we get promoted to a leadership position that we've really never been trained to be a leader, or what is important. And the fact that he could draw upon his family experiences and knowing how he watched his father delegate, which became a very important leadership quality for Eli as well. but also that caring that his family had for one another, making sure that they all did well and were taken care of, that was something that he brought into as a leader in culture. And we talked about some key areas of leadership for him when creating culture is that when you're coming into an organization, sometimes we focus on the work, we focus on the technical side, but really the people are the most important thing of making sure a company is successful. And so his 3 areas were transparency, integrity first, and delegation. And part of delegation is that respect, that friendship respect of that you trust that person to do their job, but you also are caring, that you personally care about them, where there's not this line or delineation where someone feels like you're not approachable. And I think that's really important because when we do have to give hard advice, it's better when someone knows that you're coming to it from a compassion standpoint, that you're their friend and you want the best for them. So if we're going to create a culture like that, it's really important that we develop a process all the way from interviewing to make sure that we enter into that culture the right people that agree with those values that we put in place. And so as you're thinking about your own leadership journey, think about what kind of values, culture, mantras, whatever you want to call it, that you've put in place, how you're monitoring them to make sure that it is sticking, that people are actually abiding by it. And also, how do you develop the interview process so that you can make sure that people feel comfortable coming into that culture and they will fit in? Because like he talked about, you can consistently keep scaling a business to get larger and larger. And as a business gets larger, people become further away from when that culture was developed or even understanding the beginnings and the history. So having these mantras, these values are really, really important. And then lastly, I think, one of the biggest things that he talked about with these values was that at the end of the day, with the work that we do, that it's important that we feel like we're making a difference. And how we make a difference is through our mindset. That we can look at things like what MindBridge is doing and think, wow, that's just such a lofty goal. It might be insurmountable. Or we can have the mindset or the attitude that we will succeed. And if everybody comes together with that same mindset and feels it from their heart space, that even on days that things aren't going well, you will still make it and you will make it together, then what happens is you've got this culture where people are caring, but they know that they are making a difference as a company, but also as human beings. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.